Late into the night, I found myself toiling away at the company's cold, desolate office, grappling with a mountain of documents. As the clock struck 8 p.m., only one colleague and I remained. In the eerie silence of the office, our conversation wove through the air, intertwining with the rustling of papers until my colleague began uttering words in his sleep. His voice grew sinister, whispering words of gratitude as if engaged in an otherworldly conversation. Fear crept over me, but my smile remained frozen. His dreams took a darker turn, yet I silently continued my work. At around 11 p.m., the task was finally complete, prompting me to take a brief restroom break. Upon my return, my colleague had mysteriously vanished. Assuming he had gone home, I hurriedly left. On my way back, the sight of police and ambulance lights flashed before me. A sense of foreboding gripped my heart, but I dared not stop. The next morning's meeting brought attention to my colleague's absence. The manager's voice rang out, announcing his untimely demise the previous night. Disbelief washed over me, as I had worked alongside him until 11 p.m. As I participated in the vigil, the haunting words from his dreams echoed in my mind. Had he left around 7 p.m., leaving his ethereal presence with me through the night? To whom in his dreams did he express gratitude? Reflecting on it all, an unsettling feeling enveloped me, as if trapped in an indescribable and eerie realm. On that night, I was working overtime alone in the office, diligently tackling my tasks. Suddenly, a chilling cold swept over me, as if the air itself had congealed. I tried to dismiss it, but an unsettling feeling crept into my heart. The ongoing workload kept me from paying much attention to the eerie sensation. However, when the urgent need to use the restroom arose, I reluctantly abandoned my work and hastened towards the nearby bathroom. While washing my hands, I heard a crisp sound of a door locking, and a room fell into an unnatural silence, as if it had been claimed by some unseen force. Turning my gaze towards that room, a shiver ran down my spine. Confusion and fear intertwined, as I knew for certain that I was the only person remaining on this floor. Trying to rationalize, I convinced myself it might be the wind causing the door to close. Despite the attempt, a growing sense of unease lingered, and I returned to my office. Yet, the discomfort intensified. I felt an invisible presence drawing near, and the pressure in the air became palpable. Deciding to break the silence, I stood up to investigate. Just as I reached the office doorway, I witnessed the doorknob of that mysterious room turning, producing a distinctive clicking sound. Startled, I froze, my body involuntarily stepping back. The doorknob continued its rotation, but there was no response to my inquiries. Overwhelmed by a sense of foreboding, I could only hear the sound of my heartbeat in the dead of the night. Timidly returning to my seat, I contemplated calling the security on the first floor. As I prepared to dial the number, the doorknob once again emitted an unsettling sound, as if someone were attempting to gain entry. Startled, I turned to the door, but the noise ceased, plunging the office into an eerie silence. Unable to endure the tension, I hastily packed my belongings, intending to leave the office. However, as I attempted to call the security, there was no answer. This heightened my concern, as I realized I had to leave this potentially perilous place. I resolved to open the office door, swiftly turning right towards the stairwell, clutching the doorknob while holding my bag as a makeshift defense. With my head lowered, I planned to traverse the corridor quickly and exit the building. As I opened the door, the doorknob rapidly rotated, emitting a series of clicking sounds. Startled, I jumped back, unintentionally falling to the ground. Staring at the door, ready to confront whatever awaited outside, the doorknob suddenly stopped turning, and a profound stillness enveloped the surroundings. With a racing heart, I mustered the courage to stand up, preparing to leave. However, as I was about to make the move, the doorknob resumed its swift rotation, producing an eerie sound. Startled, I stepped back, and as I watched, the door handle ceased its movement, plunging the office into a silence so intense it felt surreal. Feeling bewildered, I hesitated before deciding to return to my desk. Just as I began to dial the security number again, the doorknob stopped turning, and the environment reverted to an unsettling quietness. Unable to fathom the events, I abandoned the idea of overtime, swiftly gathered my belongings, and called the security room on the first floor. To my dismay, there was no response. Panic set in as I pondered how to leave the office. If that presence awaited me outside, I had to face it. Yet, leaving through the office door was impossible. Taking a bold leap, I decided to open the door, make a right turn, and sprint towards the stairwell. Holding the doorknob, bag poised for defense, I cautiously opened the door, only to witness the doorknob swiftly rotating with a clicking sound. Startled, I jumped back, falling to the ground. Panicking, I asked who was outside, but the doorknob continued its rotation without a reply. Trembling, I retreated to my seat, contemplating my next move. Suddenly, the doorknob stopped, and the surroundings returned to an oppressive silence. With a racing heart, I stood up, ready to leave. However, as I opened the doorknob rotated rapidly, producing a rhythmic clicking sound. Startled, I stepped back, and as I watched, the doorknob ceased its movement. I fell to the ground, startled and shaken. With trepidation, I asked who was outside, but there was no response. Feeling paralyzed, I retreated to my seat, unable to comprehend the unfolding events. The only choice left was to abandon the idea of overtime. As I gathered my belongings and prepared to leave, I called the security room on the first floor. To my horror, there was still no answer. An indescribable fear gripped me as I realized I was alone in a potentially dangerous situation. The mysterious entity that pursued me remained an enigma, leaving me to wonder about the nature of that haunting presence. On that chilling night, I found myself working late at the office, isolated by the stringent regulations and societal concerns about overworking. The workspace was shrouded in darkness, with only the desk lamp at my seat piercing through the obscurity. Despite the company's location in a corner of a bustling shopping street, the surroundings were eerily silent after 11 p.m., devoid of any pedestrians. While immersed in my tasks, the phone from the department across the hall suddenly rang. It was late, and I was reluctant to be disturbed at this hour. Yet, the incessant ringing persisted for a full 10 minutes, escalating my unease. Reluctantly, I abandoned my work and approached the unsettling call. A young voice on the other end, brisk and determined, claimed to deliver a urgently needed quotation. Despite my initial resistance, the caller insisted, citing special circumstances that left me with little choice but to agree. However, as soon as I consented, the call abruptly terminated. Leaving the office, I observed a pitch-black street below my window, devoid of any signs of life. Suddenly, the phone rang again, the caller weakly apologizing for getting lost. I informed him of missing the last train due to the delay, expressing frustration. His response was distant, and he promptly ended the call, leaving me even more perplexed. Staring out the window, I noticed the complete absence of any activity on the street, and time continued to pass. In a sudden turn of events, the caller's voice echoed through the phone, expressing unusual delight and gratitude for being allowed access to the office. Hurriedly descending to the ground floor, I discovered the reception area empty, and the security guard affirmed not seeing anyone. Attempting to verify the situation, I called the office, only to find that all evidence pointed to the non-existence of the mysterious caller. My mind became a whirlwind of confusion as the phone incessantly rang, the caller growing increasingly jubilant. Unable to endure the situation any longer, I hastily left the premises. Reflecting on that night, I couldn't shake off the feelings of unease and fear. Was it truly a prank targeting me, or was there an intangible, terrifying presence affecting my psyche? This is a story from my first job in an office after graduating from college. I joined a company in Tokyo and quickly became what people call a corporate slave. The senior colleagues in my department seemed to work tirelessly with deadpan expressions every day. As a newbie, I found myself caught up in the hectic pace, dedicating all my energy to work. About a week into the job, during a late-night overtime session, I heard a woman say, "You've been working hard." Without much thought, I glanced at the screen and replied, "Thank you for your hard work." Later, while buying coffee from the vending machine in the corridor, I suddenly remembered the incident and wondered who the woman was. Strangely, I couldn't recall her voice. At that moment, Kobayashi, a senior who joined the company 5 months before me, approached. I shared the incident with Kobayashi, expecting him to playfully scare me. However, to my surprise, he seemed puzzled, saying, "We were the only 3 in the office just now." I insisted that someone spoke to me, thinking he was just teasing. Hasegawa, another senior, overheard our conversation and mentioned hearing the woman's voice before. He explained that there's a woman in the company who frequents the staff from our and the adjacent department. Many have encountered her, and it's become a sort of unspoken norm. During crowded work hours, she blends in, pretending to work alongside everyone. She would also roam the floors and sometimes join others for overtime. As Hasegawa spoke, both seniors suddenly turned their heads to the corridor's bottom. They seemed to have noticed something, then exchanged glances before heading towards the adjacent department. Trying to open the door, they found it locked. The 3 of us peered through a small window from outside, seeing a dark office with a copier mysteriously operating. Hasegawa said, "See, she's just appeared," then went back to the office, carrying his coffee. Kobayashi and I, feeling uneasy, followed suit and resumed working. However, a chill ran down my spine when, as I was leaving, I whispered, "You've been working hard," and the woman's voice replied, "You too." Later, during a drinking session with other colleagues, I heard from someone who had seen her appearance. During the day, she looked like any ordinary office worker, cheerful and lively. But at night, her expression turned terrifying, with furrowed brows, resentment, strange fluids on her nose and mouth, bulging veins on her face, and large, staring eyes. Although her appearance was horrifying, her voice remained gentle as she thanked everyone for their hard work. I felt uncomfortable hearing this and shuddered at the thought. I never saw her, but the fear of late-night overtime lingered. I couldn't help but wonder how terrifying it would be if, one day, I went from only hearing her voice to actually seeing her. This is a story I heard from a former colleague, and I'll share it in his words. It was during the cold winter season when I found myself stuck with a mountain of remaining work in the middle of the month. As the month end approached, it became crucial to clear the workload. Consequently, I ended up working overtime every day. One evening, I stayed back at the office, surrounded by the daunting pile of tasks. Seeing the progress lagging significantly, it seemed I would have to work late into the night. Since the office was situated in a not-so-safe area, I locked all the doors after the other colleagues left. Despite having a security guard at the building entrance, being alone late at night made me uneasy. Due to the dim lighting in the office, a common fear of being alone, I turned on all the lights. During those days, I was also down with a cold. Despite taking cold medicine, I kept working until deep into the night. Suddenly, drowsiness overwhelmed me. Taking advantage of a time-consuming data processing phase in the program, I closed my eyes for a moment. Winter in the office, even with the heater on, felt chilly. So, wrapped in my coat, I rested my head on the desk and dozed off. Midway through my nap, I sensed someone standing behind my desk. In a half-conscious state, I wondered, who's standing behind me? Then, it hit me, I should be the only one working late in the office. I snapped fully awake but realized I couldn't move. My body was immobilized, pinned to the desk. A strange, eerie presence approached from directly behind. It felt as if someone was getting close enough to sense their breath, a nauseating feeling. Being alone in the office, everything went eerily quiet. The sounds of passing cars and the humming of computers disappeared. Simultaneously, a foul odor, like rotting food, filled the air. In a panic, I tried to convince myself it was just a dream, blaming it on the cold medicine, exhaustion, and stress. However, a nagging doubt persisted. Could it be a ghost? The tension escalated when I heard a sinister voice behind me mockingly questioning my self-dialogue. Eventually, I mustered the strength to move my toes, breaking free from the immobilization. I jumped up, sweating profusely, only to find the office empty. I stared at my feet in disbelief, and a sense of panic and dread lingered. After calming down, I tried to resume work, but glancing at the screen became unbearable. I quickly grabbed my laptop, locked the office, and fled. Seeking refuge in a nearby 24-hour restaurant, I vowed never to stay alone in the office late at night. Curiously enough, when I looked up while trying to work again, I noticed a mirror on the table. To my horror, I saw a figure behind me, hands on my shoulders, unnaturally pale, with long, cracked nails holding an unknown liquid. In the gaps of the cracked skin, numerous wriggling bugs emerged. The sudden onslaught of a putrid smell made me run away. From that day on, I avoided late-night solo work at the office. However, the unsettling dreams persisted during office naps, featuring a faceless woman standing behind me, reaching into my mouth with a handful of creepy crawlies. I tried using protective charms, stashing them in my drawer and on my person, but they proved ineffective. The recurring nightmares continued until the company relocated last month. Strangely, the new office is more spacious and conveniently close to the station. It's odd that the rent for this better environment is half of what it used to be. When I asked the boss about it during a drinking session, he mentioned that the rent reduction was due to some undisclosed reason. Despite the improved surroundings, I can't shake off the fear of what might happen in this new office.